You're listening to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Four. This is episode 48, and we're going to dive into some DMs. We're going to slide into my DMs, as the kids say, about the job search process. That's all we're doing today. I'm going to go over a bunch of questions I've received in emails and Twitter DMs, okay, about the job search process, just to help those just like you. We're going to look at maybe 8 to 10 different questions and go over those. And so I look forward to sharing some insight, some knowledge with you right when we get back. You are listening to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Four, a place for all coaches to call home. The Coach's Locker podcast is a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Please visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear and see our entire lineup of top football coaches coming to you every single podcast with valuable information to help you and your program. The Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Four exists to help prepare coaches to be hired for the job of their dreams and to provide coaches with dynamite resources to become even more successful in their field. You can reach me on Twitter at Coach4, that's at COACHFORE, and my podcast home is at 8laces.org/podcast. That's 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. Welcome to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Four. Now, let's get after it. Hands up, forget about the past, 'cause you and I's everything I ever asked for. Top down round the West Coast. So I listened to a podcast by Joe Daniel. Okay, check that podcast out. It's part of our Football Coaching Podcast Network. If you have not checked out the Football Coaching Podcast Network, make sure to do that. footballcoachingpodcastnetwork.com. Okay, and we've got some, just making sure I've got that email address. Yeah, footballcoachingpodcast.com. There's some very good coaches on here who have some great podcasts. Okay, Joe Daniel, I think no doubt, I think the first time I was ever a podcast, there might have been one other guy, but if it wasn't first on Joe, then it was another dude, and then Joe. I was second on Joe's podcast, Football Coaching Podcast, kind of before I even knew what a podcast was, to be honest with you. Nobody's done football coaching podcasts more than Joe, as far as I know. Not even sure what number he's on, but he does a great job. I really enjoy listening to them, and I'm not just saying that because he's a friend of mine. I'm a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network, but very insightful stuff. So he's on there. Coach Ron McKee is on there. His podcast is called Talking Football. Joe also does, and I really like this one too, called the Joe Daniel Football JDFB Quick Clinic, where they're like maybe 15 to 20 minute podcasts. Jason Honstadt's on there with Pro Style Spread Offense. So a couple different, 4 different podcast type different scenarios on there. And, obviously, if you're here, thank you for checking out the Coach's Locker podcast. Folks, I'm going to talk about 2 main things on my podcast. 3 main things on my podcast if you haven't been here before. I'm going to talk about the job search process. I'm going to talk about special teams. And I'm going to talk about kind of program management. Every once in a while, I'll get into a little bit of X's and O's, kind of with a guest type of thing. But I'll be very honest with you. To me, I don't know, like Joe does a tremendous job on his X and O podcasts. I don't know how he does it. I'm a way more visual learner than that. And so I just don't. Plus, I think there's a lot of guys out there with way better specific knowledge about certain X and O's. Like I'm a wing T guy, which is great. I could probably talk about wing T stuff here. I know I could. I could talk about packaging the jet and the belly series together, or how impressive the jet sweep, fly sweep was for me when we put that in back in 2002. What that did to open up our wing T running game. I love Waggle. Oh my gosh, I could do a podcast on Waggle, I guess. But anyway, I am a lot better doing that stuff just on a whiteboard as opposed to right here. But having said that, I'm going to kind of zero in on those 3 things. Like I said, special teams, job search, and program management. And program management. I love talking to other guys. I love doing some different interviews. Just sitting and talking ball, as they say. But anyway, today let's get going. Today it's that time of year. Some of you, if you're never going to look for a job again, just stop listening now, because it won't be too big of a, it won't be very interesting for you. So what I'm going to do is just go through a bunch of DMs. Sometimes I'll ask on Twitter about these. Sometimes I'll just get, I'll get hundreds of Twitter messages in the next couple months about the job search. I'm one of those guys. I think Joe, he did. I kind of stole this. I absolutely stole this idea for a podcast, just going through a bunch of Twitter DMs and emails from him, because he did a really great podcast not too long ago on the Football Coaches Podcast Network, on the Football Coaching Podcast. Let me look at which number that was. Might have been a Quick Clinic. Yeah, sliding into the DMs. Quick Clinic episode 190 from December 4th. Check that one out. I think it's really good. Anyway, so I thought, dude, that'd be pretty cool with mine, because I do get a ton on this whole job search process. So I think I advertised it the other day. Hey, I'm going to be doing a podcast on this, and I got a bunch that day. But outside of that, I just always get a bunch. So here's the first one, okay? Here's a comment question for your podcast. How can a coach tell when an interview process is a sham, when the admin has their choice and the rest of the candidates are just filling out the field? That is a great that's a great question, and this is actually a chapter in my book. So I wrote a book called An Insider's Guide to Scoring Your Next Coaching Job, okay? And in that book, I talk about this very thing. One of my chapters, there's 14 chapters in that book. I spent 6 years as an AD. I wrote this after those 6 years. But the last 2 years here, I have been a assistant principal. And I'm assistant principal of athletics, ASB, discipline, facilities are kind of my main issues. But I wrote a chapter on sham interviews, because I've been in plenty of those over the years. I had an interview, it was like 18 minutes, and I am not kidding you. At one time, the principal never even looked at me in the face, never even looked at me in the eyes. This female lady, that was double, I didn't need to say that, but this female principal up in the mountains at a certain school here in Southern California never looked at me the whole entire time, which was interesting. But sham interviews, yeah, they happen. What's a sham interview? That means the committee kind of already knows who they're going to hire, and they're just going through the process to waste time. Now, I spent 4 years as an AD at a private school where we really didn't have to do that. We zeroed in on somebody. We liked them. We would probably just interview them, to be real honest with you. And then I spent a couple of years at a charter school, and I learned way different. There had to be, these policies and procedures. And then where I'm at now at a public school, a lot of it is done by HR. But sham interviews, a couple of things I wrote, how you know you are in a sham interview. Let me find exactly here. Because, yeah, sham interviews are very annoying. Like I said, I've been in a few of them where you kind of know that they're just trying to get you in and out of there 20 minutes. Like a 20-minute interview, it's a freaking joke. So there's some schools that will like interview 10, 12, 15 people in a day, 30 minutes a pop. They're just get guys in and out of there because it's a screening. But what ticks me off and how you know it's a sham interview, when you go into that and they're like, yeah, we're not sure how long the process is going to be, how many interviews are going to be. If they tell you, so here's one way to know it's a sham interview. There's a lot of ways. We'll talk about a few of them. I always like to have an understanding before I interview of what, how many steps are going to be. And a good way to do that is by asking the people, HR or whoever asks you to come to the interview, ask them, hey, how many interviews are we having? I interviewed for a principal job this summer at my alma mater, Fallbrook High School. And I went down there before I accepted the interview, I wanted to know about the process. So when I called the lady back, I said, can you tell me how many interviews are going to be? and they said, well, we're not really sure at this time how many interviews. To me, that's always a little bit of a red flag, to be honest with you, because it kind of makes it feel like they already know who they're going to hire, you know? If you're telling me you're not sure exactly, now sometimes it's a timeline thing. I mean, this principal interview was in July, kind of a timeline crunch, you know? That's a very late time to hire a principal, so I kind of understand and get it depending on the timeline, the time of year they're doing it. But like if they're doing interviews in December for a head football job and they're telling you we don't know how many interviews we're going to have, that means they already know who they're going to hire. I really think that. Like 100% they know who they're going to hire. It's a sham interview. Should you go on a sham interview? Sure. Just know going in, if you think it's a sham, just know you're going in to get some interview practice, you know? But I'd say number one way is the number of candidates and the length of the interview. You know, I showed up to an interview one time. A person asked me to find my name on a piece of paper. This lady actually handed me a piece of paper with all 10 candidates' name on it. It was freaking amazing. She's like, "Can you find yourself here and let me know who you are?" And so I knew right away, like, okay, they're going to interview 10 of us today for 30 minutes each. What can you really find out in a 30-minute interview, right? They were just moving people in and out of there so they could say they did it. So they could go tell their constituents, hey, we interviewed 10 people today, you know? So try to find out how many people are going to be in the interview before you get there. Find out how long the interview is. Like I said, if they explain to you, hey, we're going to do a 30-minute interview today, and in a week from now, we're going to do, you know, a 2-hour interview. Well, that's probably not a sham. You know, they're investing some time into there. I'd say one way to know it's a sham, and if admin's already made their choice and the rest of the candidates are just filling in, find out what the interview process will be like. Many times from my experience, if there's one interview, it's a sham. So that's one, you know, that's one way to think of it. The key here is to figure out what the interview process will be like. Number two, another way to figure out if it's a sham, who's being interviewed. Try to find out who else is being interviewed. This will help you to determine if your interview is just fake, if it is a sham. For instance, if they're interviewing 3 of you and one of them's already on their staff as a coordinator and he's been at the school for 10 years, you might be walking into a sham interview. If you're able to find out one of the finalists for an AG job, athletic director job at a school where you're interviewing with is married to the most popular coach on campus, this happened to me one time, you might just be walking into a sham interview. Network with anyone you might know at the school. Network with anyone you might think you know in the league. You never know what you might hear just by asking around. Interview the press. Talk to the press about it. You know, get to know some media guys in that area. Do what you kind of find out who's being interviewed. This, again, will help you prepare and it will help you interview better. So that lady who handed me the piece of paper said, here, find out who you are, or circle your name here, I think is what she said. I saw I was second on the list, so I found my name real fast, but I had the opportunity to see who my competition was. I saw the last name on the list, the coach who had the last interview of the day. I recognized it from research I did on the school in preparation for that interview. In fact, it was the only name I recognized on the list of candidates. He was a coordinator and on staff at the school. So, and I get it. I totally get it. I respect the process of hiring from within. I'm fine with it. But just don't waste my time, you know? Sure enough, that guy got the job. Another head interview job I had one time at a school I really wanted to be at, a school I knew had underachieved for a long time. When I signed in at the front office, I looked at the names of the people who signed in before me and kind of where they went. That's a little trick I used. You know, when you go sign in, a lot of offices make you sign in. You can kind of see, okay, who else is signed in front of me. Sure enough, I saw 2 names of males on there who had been to human resources within the past 3 hours. So I sit down to wait and I Google the names and I found out they're both football coaches. One who had been fired from his job a few months prior. So I did a little research on him while I was waiting for my interview. And I found a great piece about him trying to bring up a slide. And I tried to actually work that into my interview, not his name, but that was pretty interesting. Another way to find out who your competition is through message boards. You know, there's a lot of message boards out there. You can find out on message boards a lot of good insight on who's interviewing for a job, that sort of thing. So there's a couple ways to know. One very easy way to tell if you're sitting on a sham interview, they aren't listening to you. Like I said, I told you about those 2 people. One lady never looked at me. She was on her phone like the entire time. It was actually pretty embarrassing. I said at one point during the interview, does this interview even matter? And she still didn't even look up. She did not even end up looking up. Another way to know it's a sham interview, if you get an email like that same day. That's happened to me before. I had about an hour and a half drive home. Before I even got home, they sent an interview saying, "Hey, thanks for interviewing today." And so that was a sham interview. So, and this coach is right. He says, "I see it so much now. Simply connecting the dots makes it apparent. Having inside information just confirms it." And he's absolutely right. So, but those are a few ways I think to know it's a sham interview. Podcast question: job is just posted through an online database. No cover letter or resume for the initial submission. 2 questions that are football specific. So that's pretty interesting. So this guy's saying that that the job there was, it's an online database system, but they're not even asking for your cover letter or resume. That blows me away. I don't even understand that by any means. 2 questions they ask: why are you the perfect candidate for this position? And write a letter that will be distributed to the football community that outlines your coaching philosophy and role of parents, players, and school administration. So, and then he says, is this the new norm? That's interesting. I don't know if that's the new norm or not. That's a really good way, though, I think. That's a great way to just start. I would say, this school, whoever uses that as a part of the process, they're pretty open up, I think. Why are you perfect candidate? And then write a letter. It will be distributed to the football community. They're wanting to see how well of a writer you are. They're wanting to see a little bit about your vision, your mission, your plan. So you got to be an organized person for this school who asks those kinds of questions. I love write a letter that will be distributed to the football community. I've had something like that as a part of my interview process in the past. I actually stole that. A lot of admin interviews now, they make you go do a writing prompt. You have no idea what it's going to be until you get there. And, you'll go in and it'll say, one of them, for instance, I had actually interviewed on back-to-back years in the same district for an assistant principal job, 2 different schools, but same district. They gave me the same prompt both times. I had it in my Google Drive. I just pulled it up and changed it just a little bit, but that saved me a little time. And actually what that helped me to do, saving my time, because it was a timed deal, I actually then got in because it was a highly Hispanic area, I got into Google Translate and I translated my letter into Spanish, and they loved that. I didn't get the job, but I put it in English and Spanish, and the feedback from the HR director was awesome on that one. So just a little hint if you're in a Spanish-speaking area. But if they're asking those questions, they're just doing that to get through it. Like, hey, we're going to go 10 people here, and we're going to evaluate all 10 of these, and then we'll ask for the cover letter and resume, maybe, is what they're doing. So no, coach, I don't think that's a new norm, but I think that's interesting. I think that's really, really interesting question. So all right, another question here. Let me find another one here. Special teams question, vaping question, resume question that's specific to my business. Maybe give some guidance here. I'm currently finishing up my master's and internship to be a school counselor, getting certified in Idaho, but would like to get transferred to California. Do you know what the demands or credentials are needed? I figured with you being in administration, you might be able to give some advice. Yes, I do. Specific. Let me give you a website though, folks. I just need to type it in to make sure I know it. Yeah, CTC. If this is specific to California, CTC. So that stands for Commission on Teacher Credentialing, ctc.ca.gov. And that tells you exactly, you'll go on there and be able to read about all the credentialing information that you need specifically in California, okay? So again, if you go to ctc.ca.gov, and that will let you know exactly what you need in California to be a teacher. And then also I wrote an article on coach4.org, COACHFORE.org. If you haven't heard about my website, coach4.org, I've got 400 articles on there. Used to write a lot more than I do now. But anyway, I wrote an article on there because I do get a lot of questions about being a coach here in California. And so I wrote an article called Landing a Job in California. And so I'm going to paste that up right on coach4.org right on the front of coach4.org. So, obviously, depending on when you listen to this, I'm recording this December 9th, 2019. But depending on when you check that out, okay, it'll be up there for like into January 2020 or so. I'll keep that right on the front page. I'm doing it right now. Forgive me. 08. That'll be up there on the front page at coach4.org. I'll leave it up there actually probably till like March or April of 20, because I get a lot of questions, and it's just easier to tweet this out to people or to email the link back to them. So there you go, landing a job in California. And just quickly, let me hit on that, okay? I give you the website. I just told you, becoming a teacher in California. There's a lot of steps. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard a lot out there. If you become a teacher in California, it's easy to transfer it anywhere in the nation. Becoming a teacher inside of California is a little harder, and I believe that just because of, gosh dang, man. I've seen some guys in some states, like if they're already a history teacher, for instance, to add on being a add on special ed. It's a pretty simple process. Here, it's not that simple. Like, it's a whole brand new credential, So there's a variety of ways to transfer your credential in, and you'd have to look that up on ctc.ca.gov. I wrote a little thing here on the pay, like 7 years of credentialed teaching experience with your bachelor's degree only. San Diego Unified, you're at 57,000. San Bernardino, 58,000. Fresno Unified, towards the middle of the state, 61,000. Hesperia Unified, where I've been before, 67,000. Now, this was written last year, spring of 18. So kind of all over the board, but that gives you an idea of 7 years. The best I saw at 7 years down at San Diego Union High School, 77,000. And then 7 years of teaching bachelor's degree plus 60 units. San Diego's all the way up to 96. So check that out. That's a $20,000 jump if you have bachelor's degree plus 60. Hesperia Unified jumps up from 66 to 73 with 60 units. San Diego Unified jumps up about 6 with those 60 units. So that kind of tells you the salary scale. It's a major issue. Most people don't understand it. So this kind of went on a sidetrack, but I do get this question a lot, okay? Almost every public school district in California, they will have a cap on how many years you can bring in with you. I recently had a conversation with a gentleman in Texas. He was blown away at this, okay? But here in California, districts have contracts with their teacher union, okay? And so it seems like 7 is kind of that magic number for a lot of districts. So if you've been coaching and teaching in one district, let's say for 20 years, or 2 districts for 20 years total, and let's say, I don't know, Chris Ford High School, boy, you want to go there. It looks like an amazing job. They offer the job to you. They got a great head football coach, PE teaching job. You go through the process. They offer it to you. They send you the contract, and you're going to be like, what? It's going to show you, oh, sorry, we only bring in 7 years. So you're on step 20 in ABC Unified School District. You're going to have to give up 13 years on the salary scale. We're talking 20, 30 grand sometimes. I don't know if this is unique to California or not. I know some states don't have this at all, but it's a really big deal, okay? Because, and this is why some coaches they just retire and they're done coaching. Let's say you've coached 25 years. You're a stud coach. You've got 3 or 4 championships, 25 years. And you're like, God, admin change. I just need a change of scenery. That's why they stay in the same district in California. You got guys who stay in one district and go coach in another. It's weird. It's funky, but that's a little bit about the pay scale out here. It's a major issue, and I've had guys go through an entire process with a school. They told their own admin, hey, I'm going to interview for this job, and then they had no freaking idea of this pay scale issue. It's a big deal. There's a school district down in San Diego area. It's the Poway Unified, I think, or right around there, Poway, Rancho Bernardo, that area. They only bring in 3 years. So, like, there's one school down there that cannot find a head coach year after year after year. They opened up, 10 years ago. They've probably been through 4 or 5 head coaches already. Because think about it. If you are only transferring in 3 years, what does that mean? Either your wife's independently wealthy, she's a doctor making a lot of money, and you can give up years going in, or it's a young guy, right? Most coaches worth their salt are not going to transfer anywhere for just those 3 years. So that's a really big deal. Coaching pay, I write about that in here. Guys, coaching pay in California ranges all over the board. You can make $3,500, you can make $1,800 as a stipend, up to maybe $30,000 if you're at a private school. I'd say just about the average coaching stipend in Southern California, varsity offensive coordinator, you're going to maybe look at $3,000 to $5,000. I would say head coaching stipends average somewhere 5,000 to 7,000 maybe. Okay, so those work way differently. Okay, so and then I list some websites to help you find a job also. So check that out. Landing a job in California is what it's called. Okay. All right, let's go back to the Twitter DMs. All right. Good morning, Coach. Hope this message finds you well. Currently, I'm in the hiring season out here in Michigan. Hoping to become a head coach very soon. I researched some portfolio information, came across your name and your work. I was wondering if in your discussions with others who have given feedback on portfolios, is it wrong to have forms and documents with other teams' logos and stuff on it? Should it just be personalized to the job being applied for? Thank you for your input. Apologies if this wakes you. Have a great Friday. Sent that to me at 4:39. I replied at 4:53, baby. Up and at 'em. Let's go. I said, yes, Coach. You should personalize those things unless you made those documents yourself. Like if you created them, I said if you created something and have your logo from that program on it, I don't think there's any issue with that. That's what my own portfolio looks like. Okay, my own head football coach portfolio. I have in there many documents that I'd created over the years with those school logos on them. Okay, but that's a sample of the work I've done. If you're out stealing things, and folks, we steal a lot of stuff in this business, right? Shoot, I made a manual, quick commercial. It's $19. It's called Outside the Lines Coaching Manual on my website, 8laces.org, EIGHTLACES.org. Okay, I've got a coaching manual on there. It's 105 pages. I have guys who take that and they use that entire thing as their coaching portfolio. I don't care. Do it. Go for it. Okay, because at the top of all those documents, it just says insert your school here. And those are documents I created, almost all of those in that manual. Okay, I stole maybe 10% of it, but I created most of those. In 8 years of being a head coach, I created those documents for me. It's got a letter in there. Hey, we're removing your son from the team. Here's why. I've got, practice schedules in there. I've got dear parent, come to our summer meeting schedule letters. I've got a ton of resources in that thing. Like I said, 105 things. Don't recreate the wheel. Take that bad boy, doctor it up, use it as your portfolio. But don't take somebody's portfolio information that's from another school that you've stolen. Maybe you're out at a clinic, you bought some guy's, portfolio, and you really like this form he has. Don't put that in there with his information on there. That's kind of silly. And he goes, yes, I have had something, for example, this platoon system I plan to use to establish leadership system during the off season. I've used it in multiple interviews, always have changed words in it to reflect the school I'm applying at, wondering if it's necessary. Especially now, I've finally created a portfolio and the documents I have for reviewing the portfolio are screenshots. I suppose if a job were considered worthwhile, I'm going to want to put the extra work in anyway to personalize everything to them. I guess now I kind of answered my own question. I said, yep, you did, Coach. And I told him, take the time. Those little things in your portfolio make a big, big difference in the process. And check out coachingportfolio.com. It's a great resource on all things portfolio. Okay, coachingportfolio.com. Coach Vasco does a great job there with that. Let me find my next question here. I'm going to respond to this. Did you ever contact? Let's talk about this. This coach might listen to this and might get a little bit offended. I'm not going to give out names, but here's the deal. I get a lot of these, And I think some of y'all just need to be very real with yourselves. And so if the coach who sent me this is listening, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not that type of guy. Like, oh, I'm sorry for hurting your feelings. That's just not who I am. And I don't know you, coach. If you are listening, I don't know anything about your background. But here's what the question was. Hey, coach, I've applied for a head coaching job in HBCU. That means Historic Black College University. And I'll keep the name out of it. But he said, I'm currently a head coach at a high school in the same state, okay? So I'm not going to give the state away, but he said, I've applied for a head coaching job at the collegiate level at a historic black college university in a certain state. And it looks like he says, I am already a head high school coach in the state. I would like to talk to you about how to get a head coach job in college. And my response, I'm real honest with guys. I don't sugarcoat junk here. I've had guys tell me, hey, I want to hire you to do my resume for a college job. And I tell them, my resume will probably not, I could make a quick buck off of you. It might not be quick depending on how long you've coached, but my resume service, yeah, I can make some money off you, but I always tell them, coach, you're probably not going to make a move from high school to college. Like, it's so rare, guys. And so many people out there think they're going to make the move from high school to college. It is such a rare thing to do. It really is. Unless you know somebody, okay? More importantly, like I tell guys all the time, unless they know you, you're probably not going to get a college job. You're probably not going to get a college job. Guys, some people just don't understand this, and I hate to burst the bubble with some of you guys, but you got to be a realist. 15 years ago, I was not a realist. 15 years ago, I started applying to all these college jobs. I'm a freaking idiot for what I wasted so much time. What I know now, I just didn't know it 15 years ago. Okay? I thought, oh, I'm a pretty good high school coach. Been a head coach. I'm going to go to college. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. Check this out. A lot of times, you got a head. I'll talk about a scenario at a Pac-12 school. Okay? Here's a scenario at a Pac-12 school. Very close to me. Scenario. Because a kid played for me. Goes to a Pac-12 school. Not going to say it. Don't want to bring up names or nothing. Okay? But this head coach did him dirty. The head coach did him dirty. My kid, former player of mine, goes to this Pac-12 school, gets hurt. Okay? They offer him a GA spot. Not a GA spot. A student assistant coach spot. Keep your Scully. Be a student assistant coach. Okay? It wasn't a GA. He was a student assistant coach. He basically was there for 2 years as a student because he could not play football anymore due to an injury, right? Tore up his shoulder. Straight tore up his shoulder. They honored the scholarship. That was awesome. Okay? But then, and they turned him into the student assistant coach. And it was a lot of fun watching him on the sidelines. He loved it. He'd give me some great insight going into games. Hey, coach, watch this fake we got. Hey, we're starting off the game this week with this if we do it. It was awesome, right? So he spends 2 years there, and he's told by the head coach, I've got to try to slip up and not say his name. He's told by the head coach, hey, as soon as a GA spot opens, it's yours. Okay? So he's stoked. He actually gets an offer to go with one of the assistants who got another head coach job, but he turned that down because he wanted to be a GA at this school. Well, GA time comes open. He graduates. GA job comes open. He goes in. He tells the head coach, hey, just want to make sure we're good. Coach, thank you. I'm going to apply. Do I need to apply officially? Head coach kind of turns into businessman, right? College football is a business, ladies and gentlemen. My player told me his whole relationship with the coach changed right then and there. Like on the spot in that office. Boom. Became all business. Yes, you need to go apply formally. Kid called me right after that going, dude, my whole relationship just changed with my head coach. Let me explain to you what just happened. So he tells me how he went in there, talked to him. He goes in there buddy. Like, hey, just want to make sure we're still good. You promised me that job. I'm a graduate. I see, I know so-and-so is leaving. Should open up this GA spot. We're good to go, right, coach? Nope. You need to go apply. So the kid read between the lines right there. And sure enough, they hired another dude. Okay? So why'd they hire that other dude? Well, that other kid had just played. Okay? He just started for 3 years for this defensive coordinator. Try not to give away too much info. and he wanted to coach. He wanted a GA spot, and he had just played for 3 years. And the D coordinator went to the head coach and goes, "Hey, this dude, I want him." So who's gonna win that job? A kid who just spent 2 years like as a student assistant coach. A student assistant coach is not respected by all the dudes coming in, the recruits and everything, like some guy who just graduated, who just played that game. Plus that D coordinator and him got kind of tight, and so that's it. So they had 2 GA openings there. They hired 2 kids who just graduated. So you guys who see GA openings, I bet 99 out of 100 times they are spoken for. It is, and yes, people are going to send me hate mails and hate DMs. I know a guy who got one. Yes, we all know a guy who just applied and got a job through applying for it at the collegiate level. But guys, it's so rare. It is so, so rare. I know a client I just got this past week, guys. When I call him client, I mean he came to me to have him write a resume, right? He did not have a resume. He's coached at 3 schools. Check this out. Assistant coach at a high school for like 4 years. Parlays that, takes that, becomes a head coach at a high school. He's a head coach at a high school. Let me pull up his resume so I'm giving you exact, precise information. Because I just wrote his resume this week. He came to me. He sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, Chris, I don't even have a resume. I'm 34 years old. I'm a head coach at a college." And I'm like, "You're a head coach at a college without a resume, man. It's a freaking awesome story." So he went 38-16. He won 5 regional championships. 38-16, I mean, that's a good record. That's not a great record, right? It's a pretty darn good record, but it's not great. But he established a tremendous relationship at a high school. So he coached 06 to 11 as an assistant varsity football coach. He coaches 12 to 17. So five years assistant high school coach, 5 years head football coach at a high school level, and then he becomes a head college coach. And I don't know how many guys have followed that timeline, but there's not a lot of them. Now, he's at an NAIA school, okay? It's not your Power 5 school. It's not LSU. He didn't make that jump from high school to LSU. But there are guys out there who think making the jump from high school to college is so easy. And I'm just here to tell you it's not, guys. It's very, very difficult. I have had college coaches, less than 7 college coaches come to me. "Hey, I need you to help me find this guy. I've got these 2 GA openings. Hey, Chris, I've got director of football operations opening. Hey, Chris, I want to hire," this was last year, Division II school. "I want to hire a defensive backs coach. I want to give a guy a shot. I want to give a guy a shot for a full-time college job. It's got to be his first job ever. Because this head coach, I respect the heck out of him, first of all. Good friend of mine. But he wanted to give a guy a shot. And that's stinking awesome. And he said, here's requirements. A high school guy who can recruit this certain area. I'm not going to say the area. But I want a high school guy who can recruit this certain area. Or a GA who can recruit this area. Nobody who's ever been a college coach before. Help me find this type of person." That's awesome. Okay? But I'm telling you guys, it's very, very difficult to move from high school to college. I don't want to shut your dreams down. If that's who you're dreaming of, what you're dreaming of, pursue the everlasting heck out of it. Okay? I'm just telling you, it's very, very difficult. I got a junior college coaching job. Those are very, very difficult. Okay? I got a junior college coaching job. The head coach asked me, "Hey, come in and not a good program. I'll be very straightforward with you. I'm a straight up guy. Not a good program. I don't know how many JCs there are in California, maybe 90. At the time, we were right around probably 40, 50 in the state, I think. We went 5-5 the year I was there. Okay? So a pretty average junior college, I'd say, in California. Less than average. Those who know me know where I coached. Okay? But he says, "Hey, I need you to come in and talk special teams with me." Now, listen, I live a quarter of a mile from this junior college. He'd seen me out coaching in the area for 5 or 6 years. I guess he respected my coaching of special teams. So he says, hey, come talk to me about special teams. I go in there. He asked me a bunch of questions. I met with him 3 or 4 hours. I thought I was there just doing a consultation. At the end of it, he goes, hey, I want to hire you as my special teams coordinator. I was like, what? I didn't see that coming, okay, at all. But those are the stories you hear of where a guy became a, collegiate coach from the high school ranks. I mean, I coached 16 years of high school, going into 17 years of high school. I applied to a bunch of JC jobs 5, 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, never got nothing. And I'm not even thinking about it, and boom, there it is. Like, that's the ways it happens. And that's what I'm saying. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. Okay? Who knows you? Like, have you developed a reputation for, man, this guy runs a great defense. Or, dude, there's nobody in your area who coaches DBs like this guy does. And this is the best running backs coach in Southern California. That's who knows you, right? Coach Bullmoney over in Westlake area, running backs whisperer. That type of guy where, like, he's developed a reputation in Southern California as a running backs coach. Okay, so guys know him as that. What have you developed a relationship? What have you developed what are you known for? If you're not if this doesn't, boom, right now, it doesn't come to your mind, what are you known for in your area, in your state? You're probably not just going to get some coach reaching out to you. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer. What I wrote to this coach who said, I want to really talk to you about getting a head high school job or a head coach job in college. I'm a head high school coach. I wrote, you're going to have to work your way up to that by being a position coach in college first, and then a coordinator, then a head coach. It's kind of a dumb, easy answer, and he wrote, thanks, I understand the process, but my circumstances is unique. Okay, and I'm not going to say how it's unique, and then he says, I have a unique skill set. I'm known, and this is good, kind of what I was just talking about, due to my relationships with high school coaches throughout that state. Some of the big alumni have reached out to me. So again, that's somebody who knows you, so maybe it'll work, okay? And then I referred him like, hey, you should, probably you need to have an agent. But, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, it's just, back to that coaching and college thing. Like, another thing guys don't understand. Here in Southern California, if you're a history teacher and a football coach for 10 years, you're going to be making $70,000, $80,000. You're not going to make very much coaching college football usually, unless you go to a big school, right? But if you want to go to an NAI school, Division II, Division III school, like there's Division II school here in California where I know I had a former player coaching at that place, and I had a former player coaching at a private high school. The guy coaching at the private high school, and they both coached just position. The guy coaching the private high school made more than the guy coaching Division II. Does that make any, just position coach? Like their stipends, the guy at the high school made 25% more as a stipend, okay? So a lot of times it's very difficult to make that move financially too, especially, check this out. So a couple years ago, 3 years ago, I think, I had a client came through, asked me to make him a resume. Defensive coordinator at the Division III level. He made $10,000 a year. Yes, as a Division III defensive coordinator, $10,000 a year. Folks, it's just really tough making that move. I encourage you to try it. I would love to coach, just do nothing but coach at a 4-year school someday. Who doesn't want to do that, right? I mean, that's awesome. I'm 43 years old. I'm a high school administrator. It's probably never going to happen unless one of you goes off and gets a head coaching job at the collegiate level, or a very good friend of mine somewhere. It's not going to happen. So it'd be awesome. But anyway, back to some questions. Coach, question on the cover letter. Do you actually bold key letters in the letters, like in the cover letter templates? So I have cover letter templates on my website. If you're not good at making cover letters, you can go buy those. Save you a lot of time and energy. And he said, so this coach bought those, and he's like, do you really bold keywords? Yes, absolutely. I on my own cover letters, I will not only bold a sentence, but I'll also change the color of that. I tweeted out the other day, when I create resumes, I use a red font in certain different headings. And his coach texts me or emails me back. He's like, "Hey, I need you to take the red off this resume. That's our rival's color. We don't wear red around here at all. We never use the color red." I'm like, I get it. So, but yeah, I think on your resume and on your cover letter, change fonts to get attention at those areas. Absolutely, definitely. I'm real big on, just how you format your resume. Formatting is so important. Not nearly enough guys understand that, but you want to have a really good format to your resume so it gets read. So, yeah, definitely bold, use different colors, italicize, use different size font. You know, you're going to get a lot of people tell you, like a lot of people in the business world who give advice on resume and, all that stuff. They give certain advice that is different from advice I give. That's fine. They're in one line of work, I'm in another. And I'm telling you, when there's 100 coach resumes on a desk, you got to stand out on those things. You got to look for ways to do that. And so take some chances, I guess, is what I'm trying to say on your resume. Take some chances, okay? All right, another question. Coach, how much would you charge me to take a look at my resume? Nothing. I don't. I do free consultation. Look up my email it to me in Word document. I'll do a free consultation for you. Hopefully I don't, I get about 1,000 people listening to these podcasts. Hopefully I don't get 1,000 of those at one time. Coach, I just viewed your website. Are you pretty comfortable with doing coaching resume? That is also a teaching one as well. One thing I'm having trouble with is highlighting both, but as I'm sure you are aware, in Texas, you are essentially interviewing for both. Yeah, I'll talk about that for a second. I get a lot of questions about that. Yeah, so you definitely, so there's a couple different ways guys' resumes will read, right? One, you're a teacher coach, and you followed kind of that traditional path where you have taught for 4 years and coached at XYZ High School. For 4 years as a teacher and a coach at XYZ High School. Then you went for 3 years as a teacher and a coach at ABC High School. Then you went for 7 years as a teacher and a coach at DEF High School. Yes, just keep it all together. I don't think you need to split up your coaching and teaching into 2 separate resumes or 2 different sections. Things get a little boggled, and you want your resume to read fast. What I mean by that is that when people look at it, they're not confused. Like I did his resume consultation earlier today, and I'm reading this guy's resume, and it was so confusing because he had just his coaching jobs listed. So it showed his coaching job, and it's just like one line: XYZ High School, offensive coordinator, 93, 97. ABC High School, head coach, 98 to 2006. HIJ High School, head coach, right? So he had head coach. Then under that, he had teaching jobs, okay, listed. Kind of the same way, one line. Then he had accomplishments listed. Then he had teaching accomplishments listed. Then he had key highlights listed. Like, it was so jumbled. When a reader gets a resume like that, they don't want to read it. They don't want to try to figure it out. Guys, I can't tell you any more specific resume advice, greater resume than that. It all starts with your formatting. The formatting has got to be reader friendly, okay? And that's where the format I use, I think, really helps it to be reader friendly. A couple specific things I do on there to keep the reader's eyes going through the resume, because that's what you want. You want them to read that whole thing. You got 30 to 45 seconds. Guys, I'm an assistant principal now. We're hiring teachers all the time. We're hiring coaches all the time. Trust me, you want to make that resume readable. So if a guy has to sort out, oh, he was a head coach here and a teacher here, what highlights, accomplishments, like he had one more thing, like notable figures he had coached. Like, I don't care that you coached guys and went to college. They're going to be there without you. I don't care that you coach some dude in the NFL. I really don't. I give 2 craps about some guy you coach who made it to the NFL. Because guess what, Coach Jones? You didn't get him to the NFL. His body did. His mom and dad did. The good Lord above gave that dude a huge body and a fast body. Period, paragraph. You probably didn't help him get there. Sorry. I hate if I offended you. but I might have offended some of you. Take those guys. Those guys don't mean anything on your resume, honestly. Honestly, they don't. I used to put all the coaches, like all the kids I coach that went on to colleges, on my resume. I took those off because I don't like. It's important to show that you have an acumen, you understand the process, but you don't need to list your guys who've gone to colleges. Those I don't think those make you look any better as a coach, to be honest with you. Because what about the coach who's a heck of a coach who just hasn't been talented, hasn't been blessed with a bunch of talent coming through? So he doesn't have guys who went to Division I schools on his resume. I could care less, honestly. But he had that section on there. But if you make guys, principals and ADs, if you make them try to figure out what goes where on their resume, you've lost them. They're not going to read it. They're going to put it down and go on to the next one. Okay, so what I wrote was, yeah, there's two ways to do it depending on your career path. I do all types of resumes. He goes, I figured you did. Found you on LinkedIn. Blah blah blah. But if you've coached, let's say you coach outside the building. One of my best friends is a firefighter and a football coach. Well, he's not leaving his firefighting job. He's not looking for a firefighting job. So we put together just a coach resume. And then it says on there, it explains it to them. Professional career firefighter looking for a coaching job. Okay, so boom. Okay, they know right away. Like, you don't want to leave that off, because then if they get that resume, they're looking at it. Well, how's this guy, what's he certified to teach? Is he a teacher? What's he do for a day job? What time does he get off work? But right there, one line, professional career firefighter retires in 4 years, something like that. They know that, okay, this guy doesn't need a teaching job. He doesn't need a job in a building. So, but that's another way to do it. If you teach outside the building, maybe you do just have just coaching. If you've taught and coached at different places, I've got a very good friend here in California. He teaches PE at one job. He's a head football coach at another. Teaches PE at one school where he used to be a head football coach. Now he's a head football coach at another school. Why? I told you earlier. It's really hard to leave all your years sometimes in California. So, if he wants to make another move down the road, he should probably separate those teaching and coaching. Same resume, but he'll have teaching section and a coaching section. So I hope that answers, that question on kind of how to do that. Okay. DM to a college coach, never responded to me. Coach wanted to know something about my business. Guy hawking something to me. God, I get a lot of DMs. Coach, I hope you had a blessed Thanksgiving. I'm looking for a head coaching opportunity. Are there any California jobs worth pursuing that are open right now? Great question. Right now, none of them in SoCal have a teaching position attached. This is December 9th. So it's really hard in December to know who's going to be hiring a teacher. It's a really hard thing at this stage of the game, because usually that stuff will start kind of turning up in March or so. March, April timeline. But so in California, by March 15th is when they have to tell teachers they're not going to renew their contract if they do not have tenure. So that's a pretty big deadline. So like March, April is when teaching jobs start getting advertised. But I wrote him, for those in Southern California who are interested how I responded, I wrote, right now none of them in SoCal have teaching positions attached, none that I know of. Now, like just today, you had a guy retire. He announced retiring. So that head coach job will have a PE job attached to it. Happened at my school last year, Fallbrook High School. They had a guy retire and head football job both come open at the same time. So they were able to interview for head coach PE teacher. A lot of times right now, when they're trying to fill jobs, I tell administrators this all the time, don't be silly and just hire a guy to fill that job. You don't know what teaching jobs you have open, but a lot of administrators get impatient because their people get impatient. And I always encourage them, just wait 2 or 3 months. Like 2 or 3 months, March, April, you'll know what teaching jobs you have available. You're hiring a guy who might be here for 20 stinking years. Wait for your teaching jobs to come open. God, these administrators get in this rush to hire people because they want to win a press conference, and they don't think it through. Okay, but then I wrote, hey, 2 great jobs. I think Temescal Canyon and Colony are 2 good jobs coming open. Pioneer, Liso, Niguel, those are 2 good jobs open, although I hear Liso is pretty much spoken for. So, and I heard recently Colony might be spoken for as well, but I think I'm intrigued by Temescal Canyon job as well. But anyway, if you are looking to get in Southern California, I've been tracking all the head football coach jobs here in Southern California. That equates to about 650 of the 1,100 schools that play football here in SoCal. 8laces.org/SoCal. That's EIGHTLACES.org/SoCal. 8laces.org. Had about 300 people look at that website today. I looked at it a little earlier, about an hour ago. Gets a lot of traffic this time of year. Okay, but that'll list all the head coaching jobs in Southern California that are coming open. Good morning, Mr. Four. I'm sending you a message about a resume you put together for another guy. Would you be able to assist me with my resume structure? I said, perhaps. What do you need? He said a cover letter, teaching resume, coaching resume. I told him about going over and ordering that at my website, 8laces.org. Let me find another question. Another one here. Hey, coach, what's the cost for your cover letter templates? I don't know. I think they're $9 or $10. 8laces.org. Another coach sharing a change with me. I think that's good. We've hit on a lot of topics here today. Here we go. Nope, can't read that one. Here we go. Last question. Coach, when calling, is there any questions I should ask or just call to express an interest in the job? I wrote both. You want to ask what their process and timeline is. Okay, I talked about that earlier. That process and timeline is really, really important. It's going to tell you a lot. And then also, then he wrote, thanks, coach. Finally called, and the AD isn't speaking to any applicants. There's no information being given. So, yeah, that happens often. Guys, here's the deal. Call. Use the phone. Unless it says no, if it says no phone calls, then do not call. If it doesn't say that, okay? If it does not say no phone calls, then make the call. I'm telling you right now, as somebody who we just filled a head football job last year. So I just did a search. I think maybe one guy called me. We had like 28 applicants. I'm not in a real popular position, not in a real popular area of Southern California, to be honest with you. Yucca Valley, it's a desert area. Not a real popular job because of our location out in the desert. And so anyway, 28 applicants I think we had. I think one guy called me. It just doesn't happen anymore. So pick up the horn. That's a big thing that I'm filling out right now. I just heard of a new job open. Oscar Robles is out as a head football coach at Nogales. And so I'm just adding that to my database. We are now at 39 job changes in Southern California, and I have 3 of them filled, 36 are open. So, and this is the fastest we've ever gotten to there. I've kept dates on all these like the last 3 years, and it's the fastest carousel's ever spun. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, not enough guys make phone calls anymore. Too many guys just rely on the email. So pick the phone up. If you're interested in a job, ask them if they're wanting to know, maybe you want to know more about the job. Maybe you want to know more about, what they're looking for. You're not going to get great answers, but again, I think that the most important part of it is trying to figure out their timeline, trying to figure out what exactly they're looking for timeline wise, and how many people they're interviewing, and what that timeline interview looks like. Those are the important things when you do make those calls. Folks, I feel like I'm babbling a little bit. I hope this has been helpful to you. Tried to hit on a lot of different questions I get. Email me, Chris, CHRIS, at 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org. I'm on Twitter at Coach4. That's at COACHFORE. My website, 8laces.org, EIGHTLACES. Again, EIGHTLACES. If you've listened this far, I'm going to give you a code for a resume. I'm going to save you $30 on your resume. A special code for my listeners only. This code is only good. This code is only going to be good for 10 days. So this podcast is coming out. Let me look here. I just want to honor your time and energy listening and say thank you for being a fan of our podcast. It's coming out Friday the 13th. This code is only going to be good for 1 week, okay, till December. Now I'll go 2 weeks. December 27th. This code is good until the Holiday Bowl on December 27th. The code is SoCal. It'll save you $30. SoCal. Please don't share this with anybody. Please, please, please don't tweet it out or nothing like that, or put it on a message board. Honor me that way. I'm honoring you. I'm giving you $30 off my resume service. Okay, it starts at $159. Go to 8laces.org, EIGHTLACES.org/resume, or you can also go to coachresume.org. When you order that, put in the code SoCal to save $30 off the resume. Okay? Just for being a fan of the podcast, just for listening to this whole thing. Again, SoCal, SOCAL. It's good until December 27th. 8laces.org. Folks, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.